Alright everyone, here's your warning. I'm going to spend this entire video complaining about Bloodborne PvP. If that's something you don't want to see, turn the video off. I mean it. I'm not kidding. This means you, Saint Riot. Alright? Sure you can handle this? Okay, let's get started. Bloodborne PvP isn't fundamentally different from Dark Souls. All the pieces are still in place, like roll timings, roll catching, spacing, parrying, etc., but there are factors in play that change your ability to utilize these strategies, and drastically affect your approach to each fight. Don't get me wrong, not all of them are a bad thing. The sheer speed at which fights occur is entertaining in and of itself, and the variation and uniqueness of each weapon's moveset means fights look and feel both more technical and cinematic than the Dark Souls of days past. But there are things holding it back. First off, the netcode. This horror show of a netcode, or at least a horror show compared to Dark Souls 3, has got a ton of negative effects on PvP. First, and most importantly, it makes it harder to punish mistakes. Punishing the mistakes of your opponent is a key factor in any fighting game, and when your connection to your opponents has so much latency, your ability to capitalize on these mistakes is severely hampered. Hosts and Phantoms can attack in relative safety compared to Dark Souls 3, because taking damage from an enemy attack is done on the side of the one being hit, in terms of connections. This means higher latency gives you more time to escape if you make a mistake. It also means that Phantom range, as you're running away from an opponent, is heavily increased. Since latency is so much higher, your character is a bit farther behind on his screen than where you are on yours, which means spacing enemy attacks becomes even more confusing, especially when you're trying to flee. And in a fight against 3 opponents, you will end up having to flee. The netcode makes parry timing harder, it makes heal punishing difficult, and combined with the sheer distance a quickstep covers, it makes roll catching nearly impossible. Since victory in an invasion scenario against multiple, less skilled opponents requires you to outplay them, limiting the tools by which a skilled player can defeat an inexperienced one pushes the battle even farther towards numbers, which adds difficulty to invasions that really doesn't need to be there. Now let's talk about parrying and guns. Bloodborne's parrying system is an absolute mess. It is by far the biggest mistake they made while creating the PvP. When you attempt to parry, it will stun its target, whether or not it connects. That means a parry in Bloodborne is absolutely risk-free, and it can be done at any distance. Now, an opponent landing a parry is still unlikely, because a good player would just wait until his targets have stopped spamming bullets. The main issue here is the stun. Bullet stun means that at all times, all enemy combatants have the chance of stunning you, which can result in you taking damage from a melee attack, being interrupted while attempting to punish a mistake, and worst of all, being unable to escape from a group of opponents. As a result, you have way fewer opportunities to attack your enemies, because a bullet hitting at an inopportune time could result in massive damage, or even death, even if they never land a single parry. God help you if even one of your opponents is a Bloodtinge build. I mean, mages spamming Vestiges is one thing, but a gun? Like I said, God help you. Netcode and bullets are the 2 biggest problems, but there are also small details about the way this game's coded that take away a ton of tools you need as an invader. Take the mapping of jump to the circle button, for example. Rolling away from a group of attackers is much more difficult, as you can't run and roll at the same time. In order to reaction roll attacks, you will have to stop running, and this means the team will easily catch up to you, as they suffer no such limitation. It's a little thing, but being unable to escape a group as they R1 spam you to death was the way I died almost half the times I lost an invasion. Hit stun is also incredibly unfriendly to the invader. In Dark Souls 3, I believe that a system exists where for each successive hit in a true combo from any combination of weapons, the hit stun of the next attack is reduced, whatever that weapon attack may be, by a certain amount. Bloodborne has no such system. I believe it's entirely possible to be infinite stun locked to death. And while this hasn't actually happened to me in any way that was obvious, I do have experience taking more hits in a blend or true combo than anything I've ever been through in Dark Souls 3. Also, Phantoms aren't downscaled anymore, as in they can bring their level 300 friend, and he'll have level 300 damage. You know, one time I had a Rikuyo outdamage my whirligig? I think I cried during that invade. Anyways, in order to invade, you're basically required to bring at least one Doomsday weapon, upgraded to +10, and equipped with the Blood Gem equivalent of a tactical nuke, because any password summon you see might be level 400. Have fun making that build at level 50. You know what the worst part of all this is? Bloodborne had so much potential. There are so many good ideas here that we haven't seen in other Dark Souls games. Trick weapons are a fucking blast. Rather than 20 straight swords that all do the same thing, each weapon is totally unique, coming with a deep and varied moveset that offers you tons of options with which to approach combat. That would have been amazing for PvP! Hell, that's almost like a real fighting game! The idea of guns punishing heals, that was genius! Extra damage on roll catching was clever! There's so many different weapons and tactics one could have been able to bring to bear in this system, but it's all brought to ruin by this multitude of huge, unavoidable issues. It's not that I want to hate Bloodborne, I want to like it, really, I do. I mean, look at all this footage I got trying to make it work. And sometimes when the stars aligned and the blood moon glowed red, I had fun. What the fuck, right? The lightning-fast skirmishes between Hunter and Hunter is visceral, badass, technical, and fun. See, I complain because I care. I complain because this could have been so much more. And I really hope that when Shadows Die Twice comes out at last, it manages to fix all these problems, and continue to build upon the ideas explored in Bloodborne's PvP. That's all for now, you guys. See you next time.